Anyway, what a fantastic panel. And before we get to the next session, I am pleased to introduce Josh Gagne, the VP and Global Head of Epidemiology at Johnson & Johnson, who's going to share a few words. Give it up for Josh Gagne.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks, James. As James mentioned, I'm Josh Gagne, and I'm Vice President and Global Head of Epidemiology within the Office of the Chief Medical Officer at Johnson & Johnson. Although we are a global company, we actually have a huge footprint here in Massachusetts. A lot of our innovation, our discovery, and our R&D takes place right here in this state. We have about 5,000 employees at 9 sites across the Commonwealth and about 1 million square feet of discovery, R&D, distribution, training, and office space here in Massachusetts. I am very proudly one of our 5,000 Massachusetts-based employees, and one of the important roles that I play at Johnson & Johnson is co-chairing our company-wide AI Council. The goal of our council is to bring together leaders across our enterprise to scale AI, to maximize its impact for patients, for healthcare providers, as well as for our employees. At J&J, we're using AI to help us, as well as healthcare providers, work smarter and faster. But we're doing it by always keeping the crucial role of the human-centered care and human intelligence at the core. One way in which we do this is a system that uses deep learning models to construct in real time 3-dimensional maps that help electrophysiologists navigate inside the heart when they're performing atrial fibrillation cardiac ablation procedures. And this system is designed not only to help deliver more precise procedures, but ultimately to help doctors realize better outcomes for their patients. We're also embedding AI in the everyday work of our employees, and we do this in a way that holds people accountable for the results of AI projects. We know that the workforce of the future needs to learn how to work with and through AI, and it's our responsibility and the responsibility of enterprises to ensure that we're training and upskilling our employees for this future. At J&J, we found AI is really a priority skill, and we've created a roadmap that's enabling us in our organization to keep relevant and keep current. Another important thing that we've done is we've committed to a set of principles that really keep people at the center of what we're doing. It relates to data privacy, security, fairness, responsibility, and transparency. We've published a position paper that's available on our website that outlines this process, and we've built the appropriate governance and training internally to support that. By combining the power of AI with our deep scientific expertise at J&J, we're really finding answers to some of healthcare's deepest and most challenging questions. Advancing care for patients, for healthcare providers, and for health systems here in Massachusetts and all over the globe. Thank you very much, and I look forward to this next session on AI.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to our next Globe Summit panel. We're going to talk about how artificial intelligence, have you heard about it, might be impacting work and skills and the future of everything that we do at the workplace in the future. We have an amazing panel here to talk about this, people who have a wide variety of experiences. The farthest from me, I think we're the only panel that has a Nobel Prize winner. Please give it up for Professor Darren Acemoglu from MIT. He has studied how technology has influenced societies going back hundreds of years, so we'll get some good high-level perspective. Then we have Chris Kay from M&T Bank. He is overseeing 1,000 branches, I think, is up to now, and is relocated to Boston, so welcome to Boston, Chris. Sabrina Mansour is running the governor's Massachusetts AI Hub, part of our effort to make sure that the state is relevant as AI becomes more important. And then finally, just here on my left is Eric Paley. You've known him as an entrepreneur, you've known him as a venture capitalist. Now he's working for Governor Healy as the Secretary of Economic Development. Thanks for being here, everybody. AI is a huge topic. It's really burst onto the scene, I think, into the public consciousness in 2022 when ChatGPT came along. I just want to see a raise of hands in the audience. How many people have played around with an AI agent like ChatGPT? All right, for those of you on this, at home, that was like about half the audience. How many of you are using it actually for work or schoolwork? Still a big, I would say almost as many people. So we're really getting to see how it's being used. people are excited about it. People are also worried about it. Darren, let's start with you. Give us the historical perspective. How does it seem AI is going to affect society compared to all the other technological ages that we've gone through?
Well, I mean, I think one important issue is that when we talk about the future of technology, it's not like the weather report. It is the choices that we make that we have to understand, because they're going to shape how we benefit or don't benefit from it. And I think what history teaches us is that we can do many things with our collective knowledge. And if we go down the wrong path of trying to over-automate and sideline workers, the results may be good for some people who control capital or who control organizations, but it's often not that good for workers. So I think with AI, we have a very promising, still nascent platform which we can use for many things. And my shtick on this topic, which I keep on repeating, I don't know how many people are listening, is that we would be making a big mistake if we double down on AI as an automation tool. The real promise of AI is to make workers more productive, because we can use AI to provide real-time, context-dependent, reliable information to workers to become better problem solvers. They can perform more sophisticated tasks, new tasks. But here's the catch. You might hear some things that might sound like this, co-pilots, etc. This is not the direction we're going in. The overwhelming emphasis on artificial general intelligence, a few corporations controlling AI, I think is creating an automation bias. And so I worry that the real promise of AI remains unfulfilled. And a lot of the hype, which I think nobody can deny, is actually making us too complacent to question whether we are really developing AI in the right way. What is it that we really want? And I think there is a promise of AI as a tool for all of us, and I call that pro-worker AI in the production process, or pro-democracy AI when it comes to communication, but that's not where we're going. So there is a need for a course correction.
Chris, you are on the front line of a lot of workers who may be able to use AI. I'm sure there's pressures to save money, but also pressure to make your workers more productive. What does it look like from your point of view?
Yeah, you know, in a regulated industry like banking, you know, we have a duty and an obligation and a desire to actually ensure the safety and soundness of the financial system. So start there. So you got to make sure that you got the right governance in place. But we're experimenting across all of the value chain, and you could imagine we hear a lot about better call routing or better portfolio management or smarter crediting decisioning. But we have to approach that with an understanding that it has to be equitable, it has to be responsible. So, you know, I think that the work underway is really largely an experimentation, but I just want to go back to this question about productivity. I think at the end of the day, companies are going to have to figure out AI in service of what? And you know, we're a relationship company, so how do you bring AI in service of relationships? You know, AI doesn't need to mask the human core of banking. It can reveal it. And it can aid in trust. It can aid in connections. It can aid in discovery and helping people achieve their goals. But I'm cautious that if the narrative around AI is all about job reduction automation, that we're going to miss the opportunity to bring new skills into the industry. We're going to miss the opportunity to help people grow in terms of creativity or discernment or context, all these things that AI just won't give you.
Sabrina, Massachusetts has a great history of being cognizant of these opportunities and putting some state money and some state effort, some sweat equity maybe, into producing a life sciences industry, a computer and software industry. Now you're at the forefront of the governor's effort to get us in AI. But if you look at the statistics, you know, a lot more money is flowing to AI companies in other places. What can you do? What can Massachusetts do and the AI hub to ensure that as this technology goes forward, we're still a significant player?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to first respond to some of the comments that were made, right? I actually hear a lot of alignment in what was said, right? There's the concept of choice, right, when it comes to workers. And we're seeing, you know, companies have to, put in these governance frameworks to really exercise choice, right, in how we're bringing workers in. And that's a big piece of this, right, in terms of execution, making sure companies are supported or have the opportunity to have that knowledge sharing, right, because we're not seeing AI replace workers, right? We're seeing companies adopt AI and look to upskill their current talent to be able to work with the AI to increase efficiencies, right? And so whether it is the life sciences sector or healthcare or robotics, right? All of these great sectors that Massachusetts is so strong in, right? This is a common problem for the companies, or not problem, but a transformational time, right? Where they're looking to make these adoptions of these frameworks.
Eric, your point of view as the Secretary of Economic Development is at an even higher level. You can't just focus on AI. Do you worry at all about how AI will help or hurt our workforce competitiveness? How does it figure into the big picture?
Yeah, and so Sabrina and I get to work together constantly on this, right? So it's sort of what are the long-term goals and how do we execute on these every single day as a Commonwealth? But I think the big term picture is I worry about us slowing down the progress of AI, which I think is wildly empowering to our workforce because of fear. So I think people start very often on the fear side with a tautological statement. They say, well, what if AI is smarter than us at everything? Then what? What's the role for workers? What's the role for utilize those ways? And the analogy I most often use for that is just imagine, at least in the knowledge worker community, but even beyond that, would you want to have a workforce that can't use the internet, doesn't know how, isn't trained? We suppress that. You can't do any research on the internet anymore. You can't look anything up. You can't book anything. You can't order anything. Even if you're a tradesperson, you're probably looking up how to solve an issue on the internet. You're probably booking appointments on the internet. You need to book your continuing education. You're doing that on the internet. You're doing your licensure on the internet. So I think AI is a lot like this. We have to get away from this notion that it takes over everything and realize that we want our economy to thrive. We have to be embracing the workforce learning these technologies and advancing their productivity and capabilities through them.
I want to jump off that point about learning. We have a question from the audience about should schools be teaching kids how to properly utilize AI? And maybe I'll start with Sabrina. I know that one of the things the AI Hub is doing is some pilot programs. We just quoted you in the Boston Globe about how kids should learn about AI. Tell us a little more about what you think of the question, should schools be teaching kids how to use AI?
Sure, it's a great question. And we started over the summer with the teachers and providing curriculum to help them be able to understand AI and learn how to use it in their curriculum and talk through the ethics. And that was really well received. And we then rolled it out into the schools across 30 school districts in Massachusetts. And it's really important. What I keep hearing and come up is, again, we're in this transformational time, right? We're seeing it with the students in the schools. And teachers can recognize, right, if a student has used AI in an English assignment that they had, right, and when they're maybe asked not to, and they can have a discussion around the proper usage of AI. So it's a time for learning together, right, and helping our students, help guide our students through this time and how to use AI responsibly.
Go ahead.
I would just add, I think that I agree that we should, and in the context of a company, it's really critical that we promote a culture of experimentation. This is a time to double down on talent, because the more we can have our teams closest to customers, working in solving real problems, be able to apply modern techniques, then they can consider what's the change in skills that they might need to further develop? So this is about talent and workforce planning at the end of the day. And so starting there, I think, is super critical. Not starting with the tech, but starting with the talent. And my view is more experimentation is better. Let the teams understand then how they need to evolve the skills required and the competencies to do good work.
Darren, if we were starting with a brand new workforce, we might want them all to have these AI skills, but we're not. We're starting with a workforce where some of us are very familiar with it, others don't know it at all. This has happened with past technologies. Can we upskill our workforce, or how will it work through?
Oh, absolutely. It takes two to tango. So the AI tools need to become more pro-worker, enabling the workers, but the workers also need to acquire new skills. Learning how to use AI is one of them, but I'm very skeptical that we're doing the right thing in schools, because in schools, for example, I think a very important part of it is learning how to learn. And when you unleash a new tool, you really have to worry about how that's going to interact with the process of learning how to learn. And I think the same is also true for workers in general, that we have to provide them both with the tools for understanding how to use AI and the additional skills that would be necessary for performing new tasks. I think Eric put it very well, so it might look like Eric and I disagree, but there's a big, very, very important point of agreement that the future that we want, and the future that's probably not so likely, is one in which we have something like artificial general intelligence and AI models perform everything better than humans. That would be a very dystopian future. But given that, put together that every single tech leader is telling us that's what they want, and that's what is coming. Dario Amodei says 3-4 years. My friend Demis Hassabis says, okay, 3-4 years is too optimistic, 5 to 10. Sam Altman is coy about it, but okay, 5 years. So that's where we're going. Either we're going to fail, which is bad, because that means the big promise is failing. We're banking on something that's going to fail, or we're going to half succeed, which is probably half of the job's gone. So I think your assessment is exactly right, but given that all of its current development in schools and in workplaces is definitely suboptimal, because the most powerful tech companies are not pushing in towards what you want, towards what I want.
So I think that's a lot of the rhetoric, and that's a lot of inspiring, maybe creating fear, but also inspiring the capital towards winner take all. This is where it needs to go. But I'll give an interesting example. New York Times had or am I allowed to mention the New York Times?
Sure.
The New York Times had a story, I think around maybe in May, about how about a decade ago, a futurist who's also a radiologist talked about how AI would just replace radiology, that it is the most obvious place in medicine to go. A decade later, there's more AI patents in radiology than any other medical field. So it is happening. And the demand for radiologists is higher than it's ever been before in history. So you have trouble reconciling this. If radiology is completely going to be taken over by AI, why is there skyrocketing demand for radiologists? And it's because AI is doing, we have learned over time there's many types of intelligence. And AI, maybe, AGI, will achieve certain types of intelligence, but it will not achieve every type of intelligence. One of the things that's premised by a lot of people that I very much believe is, when you zoom out and look at someone's job, it's easy to imagine the set of tasks AI can do. But when you really zoom in and look at all of the things that are part of that job, what you start to realize is, like, the accountant's job is not doing long math on a piece of paper or using a slide rule. Right? The accountant's math is actually understanding the purpose of these numbers and what to do with these numbers. But I'm sure at some point, 95% of the work was the arithmetic, right? Or the drawing of all of this very carefully, right? And so I think it's much like that with radiology, right? A lot of it is the conversation with the patient, the consult, the ongoing consultation with the other specialists. People would have thought my job in venture capital over the last 16 years was just pattern matching ideas. I don't think that was my job at all. I think my job was being a great partner for founders who really wanted to work with a VC who was really going to have their back, and then on the board, gaining enough influence to do that job well with the other investors. I would say that was way more my job than pattern matching great founders or great companies. AI might do that first piece well. It's hard to do the other piece well.
I think that's absolutely right, 100%. But the issue is that the current AI models are really failing at the promise that you are outlining. So there's a lot of evidence from radiology and a few other fields where actually AI, together with radiologists, when they cooperate and collaborate, which is the one that should really have the promise, they do worse than both radiologists by themselves and AI by itself. So that's really a bit of a warning sign that radiologists, at least in the design of many tech people, will go down the same path as bank tellers. So when first ATMs were introduced, everybody said, oh, the bank teller jobs are not declining, because it happened that ATM was introduced exactly when there was deregulation of branching and new branches were opened up. Look at it 10 years later, bank tellers, huge decline. So I really worry that at least that's the design.
Those bank tellers might now be doing financial advising for those same people at a higher level and a higher pay rate. The history of technology is over long periods of time, there's enormous job displacement over time. Unemployment also goes down, right?
Well, I mean, I think there are periods in which that happens. I've spent my career studying those things, and oftentimes it doesn't. So robots, amazingly productive technology. I'm a huge fan of robots, but the way that American companies have introduced robots, we've had many local labor markets completely decimated. Blue-collar jobs have gone away. And look at the pay of, say, high school graduate or less than high school men. It's declined for 32 years in a row in the United States as automation went on. So I think the hope that automation suddenly is going to bring welfare for everybody remains a hope unless we work at it.
Yeah, but it's very interesting. So you're absolutely right on pay equity issues and on income Gini coefficient issues. There's whether tech is the core driver, that we could have an interesting conversation. But unemployment is lower than when America was at its manufacturing peak, right? Overall, right? And that is a very important thing to try to make sure we all understand.
I think, that's another little bugbear of mine. Unemployment is low sometimes for certain demographic groups, especially because their labor force participation is so low. So actually, if you look at the groups that were negatively affected, like again, low education men, their unemployment is not sky high because many of them have left the labor market. So their employment to population ratio has plummeted, especially in areas that were at the forefronts of robot adoption, for example.
Be curious to see that data, but yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a debate. We could probably go on for a long time about it. I do want to get one more audience question in. Chris, you may have seen there was a study, not by Darren, but at some others of MIT, saying that 95% of corporate experiments with AI were not producing a return on investment. Now, I had some quibbles with the way the data was assembled, but I'm curious at M&T, how are your experiments going? Is there anything you're finding where a specific pain point of the bank is being able to be solved by AI?
Yeah, I mean, so we, as I mentioned earlier, we have experiments going across the value chain, from how you onboard a customer and how you service them, how you manage fraud and transactional, how you have better insights on helping customers manage their credit. I think that the question might be the ROI on that. We might actually want to be at the ROL, like what's the return on learning here phase? Because I think if we skip that phase, what we're going to end up doing is we're just going to augment, have an augmentation strategy where we're going to lock in bad process, bad end-to-end systems, and maybe get them a little bit better. But I think that areas that are progressing, I think across the industry as well, are the ability to route the right, very simple, but the ability to route the right call to the right person. Think about the humanness of that. Or the ability, and we take it very seriously, the ability to actually stay at the forefront of security, cyber fraud security. Those are areas where we're investing a lot of time and energy, because guess what? Everybody wants a trusted place to keep their money. And so I think there's the ROI will come. We got to make sure we focus a bit on the ROL in the near term.
Thank you very much. I think it's been a really robust discussion today about AI. Let's give a big hand for the panel. Thank you.